If you struggle with patellofemoral joint pain, just as a side note, the patellofemoral joint is part of the knee joint that connects the kneecap to the femur. Patellofemoral joint pain is also referred to as runner's knee during running, but it's important to know that your foot strike pattern when you run, specifically landing with a forefoot strike landing pattern rather than a heel strike landing pattern, may have the capacity to suppress specific knee joint reaction forces that underlies patellofemoral joint syndrome or runner's knee. In this video, I thought it would be very important to essentially highlight the mountains of research that proves that the health benefits of forefoot running stretch way beyond reducing impact on the body. Rather, the new emphasis on the health benefits of forefoot running is that making initial ground contact on the front part of your foot or on the balls of your foot may be enough to effectively reduce the cocktail of compressive forces associated with heel strike running that frays the knee joint. Therefore, running with the forefoot strike landing pattern may make it increasingly easier for your knee joint to effectively cope with running, especially running long distances. When I delved deeper into the scientific literature, I found overwhelming convincing data that running with a forefoot strike landing pattern leads to more positive outcomes with respects to improving runner's knee symptoms as compared with running with a heel strike landing pattern. Firstly, many studies indicate that there are two common risk factors for runner's knee pain. They are increased patellofemoral joint force and increased patellofemoral joint stress. It's important to stress that both of these force variables correlates strongly with heel strike running, which is why it's not uncommon for a heel strike runner to have their performance undermined due to being sidelined with a knee injury. This is where forefoot strike running can reverse this troubling trend. A 2004 study published in the journal Medicine and Science in Sports and Exercise and a 2015 study published in the Scandinavian Journal of Medicine and Science in Sports impressively revealed that when heel strike runners switched to landing with the forefoot strike landing pattern, the runners experienced a 15% drop in patellofemoral joint pain. Another subsequent finding was that the heel strike runners who ran with the forefoot strike experienced a 10 to 13% reduction in the two runners' knee risk factor variables. And remember, they were patellofemoral joint force and joint stress. The researchers explained that normally when the forefoot strikes the ground, there is a reduced need to lift the forefoot, which helps expand the capacity to essentially land on the forefoot and support a more accurate forefoot strike landing. This is one of the important differences between heel strike running and forefoot strike running, in that in heel strike running, the forefoot or the front part of the foot is always lifting back so that the foot can heel strike. Interestingly, the researchers found that the lack of forefoot lifting at touchdown in the heel strike runners who switched to forefoot running also influenced greater knee flexion, which means increased knee bend. The researchers discovered that forefoot striking with very minimal forefoot lifting helped close in on the forefoot strike landing pattern during running, seemed to automatically trigger greater knee flexion or knee bending at touchdown, which collectively was found to be incredibly useful in setting in motion less mechanical demands on the knee joint and a massive reduction in harmful joint reaction forces acting on the knee joint, thereby effectively melting away runners' knee risk factors. What this means is that when initial ground contact is made on the front part of the foot, but just before the forefoot strikes the ground, the forefoot veers downward. It doesn't lift up. This way of landing on the forefoot without lifting your forefoot gets linked together into a chain of additional mechanical modifications, such as increased knee flexion or knee bending, that effectively helps lift knee busting compressive forces and may help with more lasting progress with respects to resolving knee pain and runner's knee. Now, in contrast, Many heel strike runners tend to do the very opposite in that they lift their forefoot back when the foot strikes the ground on the heel, coupled with the knee of the landing foot is often unbent and completely straightened out at heel strike, which are mechanical actions flagged as major risk factors for runner's knee, as this mechanical arrangement, i.e. unbending the knee, swinging the swing leg out to heel strike while lifting the forefoot back, really caters to overstriding, in which a greater proportion of the leg swing activity is in front of the body, in front of the mass of the body when you overstride with your leg, which is naturally going to shift more compressive forces and joint reaction forces on the knee joint in higher doses as compared with forefoot strike running. Much of the mechanics associated with heel strike running are not really well supported conditions for sustained optimal joint health. So, to address the same question many runners tend to ask, how do I protect my knees when I run? Landing on your forefoot first is the small change that can make a big difference in the subsequent chain of mechanics and motor-based counteractions that are very powerful components that come very naturally in forefoot strike running that may make running easier on the knee joint. Ultimately, landing on the forefoot during running may essentially offer more fluid cushioning on the knee joint itself that may be more qualitatively powerful at protecting the entire knee joint from impact-related injury, much better than any form of cushioned running shoe. That is why many barefoot runners are able to run without the added risk of a knee injury, because most barefoot runners land with a forefoot strike landing pattern in which much less joint reaction currents pierce through the knee joint, and is how most barefoot runners tend to find greater success in avoiding runner's knee as compared with many shod joggers or runners who wear shoes. So to make running less grinding on the knees, try and avoid heel striking when you run, but rather land on your forefoot first while relaxing your forefoot when it strikes the ground. This means no forefoot lifting or forefoot smacking when your forefoot strikes the ground. This in turn will also naturally trigger a slight knee bend, or even better, just make the conscious effort to bend your knee when your forefoot strikes the ground. And this concerted effort, i.e. forefoot relaxing, forefoot striking, and knee bending, supports a smoother transition from the flight phase of running to the touchdown phase of running. You essentially get a smoother transition between the foot with the ground, which may really have a big role to play in scaling back on the force distribution in and on the knee joint. This may really be one of the best practices in achieving better outcomes that essentially and effectively reduces high volumes of strain on the knee joint as compared with running with the heel strike landing pattern. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and to stay up to date on all the latest research regarding forefoot strike running versus heel strike running, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, where you will also get more informed on the health and performance benefits of barefoot running as well as minimalist running. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Have fun out there on the roads and trails. Bye for now.